and I should have come prepared for this. Anyway, there was a story where she went to visit these Eastern countries and learn about Tibetan Buddhism and all sorts of stuff. Learn about tulpas, and she ended up creating a tulpa that was a monk, I think, is what she created.
It was a what?
Like a monk, like a robed monk, a little man. And
badass, dude. I bet that monk could fight, could do splits, karate, spin kicks.
No, that monk fucks.
I knew you were going to say that.
And but anyway, this thing actually took on a physical form, and other people reportedly had seen it as well. Like it wasn't just it actually manifested in real life. And I think the end of that story is she had to destroy it because it got out of hand, and just basically it was usually a tulpa will be sort of a slave, I guess, or just it will be under your control, but it sounds like it can very easily get out of your control, especially if your energy that you're putting into it is less than pure. And I think she ended up having to try and destroy it because it was just
how was her energy? How was she not what was not pure about her creating the tulpa?
I don't know. I can't remember the full story with her. I think and this is the thing too, I think it was initially just a pure tulpa form, and it used to help her with things, whatever that may be for her. But like I said, it got unless you can continue that pure thought and pure intention you're putting into this, which is, you have bad days sometimes. It's kind of hard to do. So eventually this thing just got more and more powerful, and I just got out of hand, which gets me to like creating these things on your own. Like Kaedrich was talking about, that they feed off negative energy. They want that. They want the fear. They want that. We've heard that a bunch of times with a bunch of different entities. Yeah. They feed off that fear. They want that fear. And they live for it, and they kind of provoke you to get that emotional reaction, so they have something to feed off of.
And that's what tulpas do. You create them, and then they create situations.
You're feeding them with your intention, with your mind or whatever. So if they become reliant on whatever emotion that created them, which I think if you're concentrating on whatever it is, it can become a tulpa-like creation of, if you're terrified that you're going to get COVID-19 or whatever, I'm sure that in and of itself, with the fear and
we're all going to die.
It's going around that. I'm sure there's some sort of otherworldly egregore or tulpa that's been created from this, from everyone just being so crazy afraid of it and everything right now. I think that's the danger in it. I think is creating that thing that becomes an attachment. Then,
right? Yeah. Totally.
Like it's drawing from you, and I just with that whole group of people. If you look on Reddit with people talking about, oh yeah, I created this thing, and there was like people saying like, oh yeah, I had sex with it last night, and like in a dream, and there was people like talking about.
Making tulpas and like boning them, that's just ridiculous.
yeah. People talking about like physically hearing the voice of this thing, and I'm like, is that moving on to a pathology then? Are we having some mind problems then? When you're hearing voices from this thing? So yeah, it gets. I think that's why I like people like Kaedrich who have dealt with this stuff their whole life, because they know what they're doing. And as soon as people start experimenting with shit like this, and they don't understand fully what they're doing or what how it's affecting them or whoever else, I think it's
they're letting things in.
Yeah.
It's just it doesn't seem evil at the time, but if it takes over your heart, then it can be dangerous.
Yeah.
For sure.
So there's my rant.
There's your rant.
Powerful O'Connor rant. I love that.
Powerful O'Connor rant.
I was electrified. First of all, I just want to say that Kaedrich's a dick, and I hate that guy. No, I'm just kidding. He's a good friend of mine, and he's super awesome, and everything he said was really cool. and I really enjoyed that interview. There's so many different ways to go with it. But the one thing I took from it was actually the beginning.
A bunch of questions too. Like follow-up questions I have for that. But
maybe we do a follow-up. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. There was literally like 4 or 5 topics I could just go deep on. But the one thing I took away actually from that was the very beginning when he went into like how supernatural is natural, that it's positive, it's all around us. It's not something like the movies make it seem so scary. Something bad's going to happen. Something's going to jump out. And that's just a bunch of bullshit. And I come from a town, which after the break, I'm going to tell a story about my family, the Ryans. I'm a Golembeski, but my mother was a Ryan, who owned a farmhouse in a small town that we've owned for over 150 years. And it is just rife with paranormal stories, alien stories, all sorts of stuff. But I have an amazing story that I'd love to share right after this break.
All right.
So, Josh, is this in Little Compton? Why is there so much shit that happens in your little town?
Well, the Warrens said, the famous ghost hunters, the Warrens said, the older the place is, the more things that happen, the more hauntings, the more weird shit. And Little Compton is old. And that is probably the main reason for that. It's fucked. So, for people who don't know, I'm from a small town called Little Compton that is a peninsula in New England. It is creepy. We only have 3,000 people who live there. In the summer, it goes up to 12,000. All these big rich houses of people from New York live there. And Little Compton is like a quintessential New England town with a white steeple in the middle of it and graveyards from the 1800s, a lot of farmland and really spread out. It's a beautiful place, but also full of lots of mystery. My family farmhouse is on this road called Maple Avenue, and we've had it in our family for over 100 years. I forget the exact date. I'm going to throw out 150 because it sounds better. So this has been passed down through many generations, and I have the place is just, I feel like it's a portal for paranormal, because the story I'm going to share is just one angle of it. But before I get into it, I just want to say I've witnessed a UFO from this farmhouse. I've had weird experiences in this farmhouse, and I'm going to tell a quick story before I get into the bigger story that really goes into what this place is like. So here we go. So 2 years ago, I was home. This farmhouse is surrounded by just lots of green land and fields with like cobblestone like walls that are made of just stones. We have like all stone walls everywhere. It's amazing. So I was home 2 years ago, and I kept hearing a distant noise. We were sleeping in one bedroom. In the room next to us, I witnessed I kept hearing like faint laughter and faint kind of like people playing cards or something. And I kept noticing it over and over again. And eventually it dawned on me that I wasn't really like hearing something in the distance. It was coming from this one room in the house, and when it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, it was such a weird feeling. But anyways, the next night, this was around Christmas, my aunt was sitting with my wife at a table, and my aunt is the type of person who's really in tune with spirits, with the paranormal. And she turned to my wife and said, "Hey, there's someone in the house. It's not one of our recently passed away relatives. Both my grandparents have recently passed away." And she goes, "Not them. Someone else is just passing through." And then my wife and my aunt both witnessed a shadow figure come close to the kitchen and overlook us as we were all sitting there. And they both kind of froze and panicked, and then they hit us, and the thing dissipated before anyone else saw it. But my wife and aunt both saw it at the same time.
Wow.
It's unrelated to like anything I'm about to tell you, but it just shows you like this place. I also last summer witnessed a UFO out of the window upstairs in the farmhouse, where I was looking out the window. My wife and I saw a crazy blinking light. It was a long story, so I don't know what's going on there, but it's like a portal of some sort.
So back to the ghost thing. Did your aunt felt its presence before anyone saw it? Is that right?
Yeah, my aunt is a very interesting person who has a unique skill, kind of like the movie The Sixth Sense, where she
sees dead people?
She sees dead people, yeah. She's like the real-life version of what the movie's based off. That's not just, made up.
Long Island medium.
So she sees stuff. She can sense it, and she's in tune with it. And but my wife, I saw it. Like, she saw the same thing at the same time, and it freaked her out. And we actually, it was really scary. It was really hard to sleep there that night, actually, because it was really kind of creepy. But this it's not creepy. That's the thing I'm trying to get at. This is what Kaedrich was getting at. None of it doesn't have to be bad. It's not all bad. Okay. So this is a story I want to tell. It's awesome. It's a great.
You know how to protect yourself.
Exactly. Yes. Yes, but not everything that you're interacting with is negative or evil or like trying to hurt you. That's, I think, the big thing takeaway here. So this is a story. Okay. So my aunt Susie was younger. It was before she was a teenager. It was pre-puberty, which is important in these kind of stories. And she remembers one night waking up in this farmhouse on the top floor. Really, this farmhouse is kind of like creepy too. It's something out of a movie. Like the floorboards creak, and you hear noises and shifts and stuff like that. Every time I sleep there, until I was like in high school, I made my grandmother sleep with me upstairs, and she would once I went to sleep, she'd go downstairs and sleep downstairs. Which is terrifying, but it's also
that
a good way.
thing you were mentioning. That comes up a lot in especially like poltergeist stuff. It's the whatever energy is heightened during that puberty time, especially for young girls.
Right.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's like there's like a crazy boost of energy during that time especially if you're kind of in that, if you have the touch or whatever, you're, it's like amplified or whatever during that time of your life, especially for young girls, like I said.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's very common. Especially, a lot of ghost stuff and a lot of possession stuff too. But this isn't a possession story, but it's creepy for a second. So my aunt, when she was younger, the first time it happened, it was a little scary, but this happened many, many times. She'd wake up and there'd be a figure standing at the edge of her bed, something out of a horror movie. A large man standing there, large to her because she was small, not necessarily like a yoked dude who like lifts a lot or anything. Not a lineman. Yeah. Not like a Navy SEAL, So this guy, then this person would come and sit on her bed, and he would just sit there. It would just sit there. So this figure would come and sit. It never did anything like wrong necessarily. It didn't do anything uncomfortable. It wasn't a creepy experience, a perverted experience. It was almost, and my aunt remembers he's having a sense that everything was okay. It wasn't like the first time when you see a figure at your bed in the middle of the night, you're creeped out and you're freaking out. But then after that, she didn't really, she wasn't really scared of it. It happened over and over again. She would tell her parents. She'd tell my mom, who's her sister, in the house, a big farmhouse with like 5 kids, and no one believed her. They were like, whatever. Okay, fast forward, she's in college at the University of Rhode Island. She has 2 roommates that she brings back home to the farmhouse.
Oh, no.
Those 2 roommates are sleeping in my Aunt Sue's bedroom that she grew up in, the one where she had this experience. My Aunt Sue slept in a different room because there wasn't enough beds. So in the middle of the night, Diana and Christine let out this like blood-curdling scream, like the worst thing in the world's happening. My aunt wakes up. My grandmother, JoJo, God rest her soul, she got up and ran upstairs immediately. I was like, what's going on? What's going on? And they both claimed that a man was standing at the edge of their bed, just standing there for a long time, and kind of seemed confused, and then came and tried to sit down multiple times, and they kept being like, no, get away, and it kept backing up, and he seemed confused. He wasn't trying
because it wasn't your aunt anymore.
Right, exactly. That's what they think. So
I know when I've broken into people's houses and stood by the edge of their bed, they do get pretty freaked out the first couple times. So I get it. I understand.
Yeah, I get it. When you're creeping, man, people don't get it.
Yeah. But they come around eventually, is what I'm saying.
Oh, is that what happens?
The first time they freak out, and it's like, call the police, get the shotgun, or whatever. But
they're like, why don't you stay? It must be cold out there.
They ease into it.
Is that what happens? Okay. All right. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, carry on. Sorry.
No, it's okay. So the next morning, they get up, and my grandmother, JoJo, shows them a picture of somebody. And she goes, was this the guy? And they were both like, yes.
Wait, who was it?
Oh, okay.
So that guy was our Grandpa Carter, who is my great-great-great-grandfather, who bought the house from a whaling captain who built the house. And he lived there.
Yes.
And he started the family. He's the first, part of our family who owned that place. And the room that they were in is the room that he died in.
Wow.
Really, really interesting. So
just the history of that place is crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah. It was bought from like Captain Ahab or something, and then
it did. There's a whaler who was like a whaling fisherman, a captain. He built the place out of his bare hands. I wonder if I was hearing him in that say again?
Why are all these chicks in my bed?
Right. He's like, I'm confused. Where's my family? Like, yeah, probably because it wasn't his family. He was probably just checking in. And what my aunt thinks and my mom thinks is that he was so in love with the property and never wanted to leave. Yeah. And this is not the only thing that happened too at this house, and the only time that someone saw this kind of figure. Other things happened too that were different. Other paranormal events, completely different ghost-wise, not related to him. But this guy eventually did go away. They eventually held some sort of psychic came over and cleansed the house and did a more positive thing, not like, oh, you must leave, demon. More like, hey, it's time to go, Grandpa Carter. Yeah, it wasn't like a dark thing. It was a positive. paranormal experience, a little scary, a little weird here and there, obviously, but overall, like, it wasn't a bad thing. Like, nothing bad happened.
He didn't mean any harm. Like, he didn't cause any trouble or anything. He was just watching over, basically.
Exactly. So I just thought, I love that story because it relates to what Kaedrich was talking about, just about how, like, you know, our